What is up, guys? Teddy Cornwell here. Welcome to the Underdog Talk, the world's most underrated podcast on earth. But today we are joined by the big fella, a three-time Pro Bowler in the National Football League. Not that there's any other, well, there is a few other leagues. A first-round pick, a two-time Morris Trophy Award winner, a gentleman who has recovered 9 fumbles in his career. And I had to throw that out there as well. Hailing from York, PA, the big fella, Mr. Lincoln Kennedy. What is up, sir? How you doing today?
I can't call it, Teddy. How are you? Thanks for having me.
Thank you for coming on. And, I was doing my research on you, and I had no idea that, your mom was such a big fan of Abe Lincoln. And I respect that a lot because you obviously changed your legal name to Lincoln, which is pretty badass. You know that.
Well, to be honest, Teddy, I didn't actually change my legal name. It was, well, the funny story is that I'm a junior. So my legal name is Tamerlane. And my mom didn't necessarily care for how my dad's name was shortened while they were growing up. People called him Tam or Tammy. So when I was born on Lincoln's birthday, and I got the nickname Link. And it was just easier for people to pronounce. But when I went to school, the teachers would always butcher your name with attendance, and I just had everybody call me Link and kind of called on as Lincoln. I had no intentions of ever getting into Lincoln Kennedy, but when I got drafted, I was picked by the Falcons. They drafted Lincoln Kennedy. So when they issued my first check, it was in the name of Lincoln Kennedy, and I couldn't cash it because I didn't have any ID that says Lincoln. So I haven't officially changed my name. It's just that everyone knows me as Lincoln.
Okay, that makes more sense. I mean, I still, luckily for me, I was born Theodore. I didn't have to change my name, or I went by Teddy. So I guess there's something there, and obviously, I kind of want to dive deep into the draft. We just had the draft happen. Obviously, the team that you got drafted for made big headlines, getting a quarterback in the first round. Obviously.
Yeah.
And what did you think about that? Obviously, being a former Falcon, being in that culture, kind of knowing the guys there. What was your thought? What do you think their thought process of getting Penix at a quarterback spot when they already had Kirk Cousins? What did you think about that?
I thought it was a smart move, and I'm certainly happy for Michael Penix, a former Dog, University of Washington, did everything he could in his college career. Had the guys on the cusp of winning a national championship. I'm certainly impressed. Now, mind you, the organization that I worked for was ran by the Five Smiths and not the current ownership for the Falcons. It was a different climate back then in Swanee than they have right now in Atlanta. But I'm wishing them all the best. I thought it was a smart move by the Falcons because Kirk Cousins is coming off of a Achilles injury that sidelined him for last year. And he's an older quarterback, so you never know what you're going to get. And I think the fail-safe was the Falcons were picking high. They had someone they thought they fell in love with, and they said is capable. There's the future. So Michael Penix can be either a backup or he might even start, depending on how the season goes. So I thought it was a smart move by the Falcons.
100%. And kind of switching to your other team, which you played for in your illustrious career, the Raiders, obviously, kind of staying with the quarterbacks they have. What do you think about that and keeping that quarterback room? Obviously, kind of letting Jimmy G go. But what do you think about all that?
Well, they added Gardner Minshew, who's a proven quarterback, a veteran, as the possible backup. I thought it was smart. The reason why I know a lot of Raider fans in the Raider Nation wanted them to go out and get a quarterback seemed like every other team was doing. But I thought it was smart because if you really want to give Aiden O'Connell a try, he's only had 1 year under his belt. Look at the turmoil the Raiders were under last year with the coaching change midseason and everything else. I didn't think that they really needed to draft a quarterback. Aiden O'Connell played a lot of football, fourth round pick out of Purdue, and he had some good success in college. The thing is that you got to give him a fair shake before you assess or go from someone else. If the Raiders would have used their first pick or try to draft a quarterback high, then you would have pressure not only from the media, but also your fan base to put that guy in. So give Aiden a chance. You've got a new offensive coordinator. You've got a proven backup, as I mentioned, in Gardner Minshew. So you have an opportunity to maybe make that room shine without having to go through a lot of expense. See what you have in the cupboard before you go shopping.
100%. I like that. And, I mean, do you think there's any chance that Gardner gets the nod going into the start of the season, or is it kind of set on O'Connell right now?
Well, it's anyone's game right now. So they're going to start training camp here in a couple of days. And I know for a fact the Raiders are going to be evaluating how both quarterbacks going and try to give them the best opportunity, the best chance. But this is going to be a high-powered offense with a lot of weapons. Whoever's that quarterback, so you want to make sure that quarterback's going to make the right decisions. Should not have any trouble getting rid of the football. They just have a few details they need to work on up front with their offensive line. I thought they addressed that in the draft as well, and I think they're going to be okay. So I'm really looking forward to seeing the product of the start of training camp in the preseason.
100%. And obviously, I forgot to add, Lincoln is one of the stars of the Raiders color commentary who does so well on that. So that's why not only did he play for them, he also knows all about them. That's why, this is awesome to talk to him about. And obviously, the kind of news going about the Raiders is not just about that quarterback room, but Devontae Adams, obviously, still the number one guy there. There's been some kind of talks in the air about him going. What do you think about all that, or do you think that's just nonsense?
I think it's just nonsense. I think it's media fodder, and there's just everyone wants to spread rumors, put stuff out there because they think that it's newsworthy, and that would be the hottest ticket if you were. I mean, that's the equivalent of saying that they're going to trade Max Crosby. No, they're not. They're not going to let Devontae Adams go. They're not going to let Max Crosby or anybody else of that caliber go. So the Raiders are building a team. Look who they have to compete with: the defending Super Bowl champions 2 times, Kansas City Chiefs, in the same division. So you see them twice, and that has been the moniker, the staple that most teams, especially in the AFC, have tried to duplicate because they want that success. So the Raiders got to find a way to answer them consistently, those games against the Chiefs, and find a way to beat the Chiefs if they make it in the playoffs and go far in the playoffs. So that's what they're up to.
And they held their own against the Chiefs last year.
Yeah, 1-1. How about that? It was the first time for a long time that it actually happened.
And that, they held their own, and I think they're a contender. I think you just got to put the right pieces, like you mentioned, Lincoln, and then go from there. Now, obviously, I kind of want to get back even further, I mentioned you were on the Falcons. That's where you got drafted, with the number 9 pick. As a kid, obviously you excelled in college, excelled in high school. Did you ever see yourself actually getting into the NFL? I'm always interested in that. Did you ever see yourself being an NFL player, and then to add on to that, a first-round pick?
Not at all. I mean, there were people around me in my circle, Teddy, who thought that I had the capability, but I never envisioned it because I didn't start playing football until I was in 10th grade. I was a band geek, so I was into music. And, at that time, I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to be able to get to college because there's no way my parents could afford to send me to college. So started playing football, got bit by the jock bug, started playing all the sports after that, basketball and track and field and all that stuff. And found a way to get myself into college. That to me was a dream come true, finding myself getting in college. Never really, thought about the success that I had. I mean, and how good the player I was going to be. But when I did see the scouts watching me and I heard it, I was, certainly enamored by the chance to go to the next level, but never really thought that I would be in the NFL.
And what were the emotions like hearing your name going number 9 to the Atlanta Falcons?
Well, the funny story about draft day for me is I was with my agent and my family in Dallas. That's where my agent was, and we had rented out a hall at one of the Marriotts. And so I was on the phone with every team from number 3 to where I was picked number 9. And I swear, Teddy, I sweated probably through 2-3 shirts because I was so nervous, talking to them. And there's 15 minutes between picks at that time. So I'm on the phone with every single team, and I don't know where I'm going. To be honest with you. And the goal when I got and told I was going to be drafted, my goal was to be the first offensive lineman taken. Well, I came close. I was the second. But, Willie Rofe, who's a Hall of Famer, went to New Orleans the pick before. And that made sense. My agent actually told me that was going to happen because he was a local kid, so it would sell tickets. He went to Louisiana Tech, so it would sell tickets for the Saints. So it made sense. But, I thought it was a dream come true to go to the Falcons. I didn't know much about the run and shoot. That was the offense they were playing back at the time. But I wanted the challenge. And one of my good friends went the year before to the Falcons, and Bob Whitfield out of Stanford. So, they were projecting us to be the bookends of the future. It just didn't happen.
And obviously, we'll talk into that, how it did work in your favor, obviously going to Oakland where that all worked out. And obviously you started your rookie season and, you played with a guy who was on the other side of the ball named Deion Sanders, who is pretty darn good.
Yeah.
What was that like being on a a team as a rookie with Deion Sanders, who that was probably his 4th year in the NFL, I'd say.
Yeah, I think it was around the 4th year. It was star-studded. I mean, he had guys like Deion, had Andre Rison, who receiving core. So, I mean, he had a lot of stars. It's what you kind of expect on the NFL team. And Deion was great. He was a character in the locker room, a character on the field, and just a phenomenal player. It was great to play with him.
Yeah. And what made Deion so special? Obviously, he's one of a kind. And, you actually got to see him. Did you ever play? You guys in scrimmage played against each other, right? Was he?
Well, I mean, Deion didn't really do much. He was a corner, so I wasn't going to necessarily block him. He was out in coverage.
Yeah, but you got to see him up close. What made him so special?
Well, he was just a dynamic player. He could do everything well. He had speed. He had finesse. He had an uncanny timing to find the football. And he just became one of those, what they use the term shutdown corners. You wanted to go away from him. You didn't want to go to him because you feared that he might pick the ball off. So that's what made him so special. And he was able to carry that title. And more importantly, he was able to do the stuff on the field. I mean, he was prime time. So it was a show, whether he was returning kicks or punts or he was playing corner, he was out there in that field and you had to take notice of where he was because he was that type of impact player.
Really one of a kind. And obviously, Atlanta has had a great culture with him. And, what was it like going into that Atlanta culture at that time with that new owner, with that ownership at that time? Was that where you wanted to go? Obviously, you kind of don't get to pick where you go in the draft, but was Atlanta one of your top spots?
Well, as I said before, I just wanted to be the first lineman drafted. So I didn't really have a place that I said I wanted to go per se. But for the most part, Atlanta was cool. It was cool back then as the early 90s.
Yep.
And I had a good time there. I was only there played with the team for 3 seasons before I got traded over to the Raiders. And then, I moved out to California. So, but for the short time I was there, it was exciting.
And you alluded to that. What was it like going from a team that drafted you to going to Oakland, which is almost on the other side of the country? What was that all like? What were your emotions going through your head when they traded you?
Well, my biggest question mark was were they going to be moving back from LA to Oakland, because I knew I hung out with a bunch of the LA Raiders and I knew that football wasn't really on the front of their mind. I mean, they had success. They obviously won a couple Super Bowls while they were in Los Angeles, but I really wanted to see whether the team was going to be more impactful and different. Growing up in Southern California and San Diego, I knew what LA was like. So I was excited about Oakland. It honestly was a dream come true. I remember Al Davis, who was the legendary owner, may he rest in peace, had told me one time when I met him in college that they weren't going to be able to pick me because I was going to be too high. I wasn't going to be around when they had their pick in that draft. But he said, one day you're going to be a Raider, and he made it happen. And so I was excited about that opportunity. And it was just a total, mind-blowing effect going to the Raider Nation and playing for the Raiders in Oakland, because it was an unbelievable atmosphere, very different than what I had in Atlanta as far as the fan base is, as far as support, and more importantly, the caliber of team. It fit my style a lot more for the play. And the great thing about the opportunity to go to Oakland, when I went to Oakland, I was a starter from day one until I retired.
And do you know how many games you missed in your 7-year career in Oakland?
Oh, probably in Oakland, probably
it's a little number. That's why I'm asking.
3, yeah, like 2 or 3, maybe. I don't know.
Three.
Yeah.
Which is just so impressive. I don't think people understand that, Lincoln, how difficult it is in any position in the NFL to maintain that consistency. Obviously, when it comes to mind, Joe Thomas, who did it so well in England, but 3 games in 7 seasons, and kind of like that 3 games you missed, you also made 3 Pro Bowlers,
right,
with 1 first-team All-Pro, which was just amazing. What was it like getting, your first nod in 2000, getting that nod to the Pro Bowl, and kind of seeing, getting that praise you deserved?
Well, to be honest, I thought it was long overdue. I thought I was one of the better tackles in the league and thought I should deserve to go a lot more and a few more times than I did. But it was great when it happened. I realized that at the time that left tackles get more of the recognition than right tackles. And I played most of my career at right, even though I did a little bit of both out of college, both sides. So I understood what it was, but I was thankful when it finally happened. I finally got the nod. I had been an alternate for probably a few years, but the guys that were starting in front of me weren't going to go anywhere. They wanted the trip to Hawaii back then because that's where the Pro Bowl was played. And so I was thankful for the top when it happened, Teddy. And certainly happy about it. But, I personally thought I should have been there a lot sooner than I got there in 2000.
And you obviously made it from 2000 to 2003 for 3 years when the Raiders actually made it to the playoffs for those 3 years in a row. Out of those 3 seasons that you made it from 2000, 2001, 2002, and I think 2000, those 3 seasons, what was the most special season for you, obviously? Because, again, people don't understand how impressive it is for a team to make the playoffs in the NFL, but go 3 years in a row. And obviously, I think my favorite year was your 2000 year when you guys did go 12-4, finishing in the first place. But which of those 3 years was kind of the most special for you?
Well, they all were special. They all were one of those things where you think back now, Teddy, and you say that I wish we were able to do more. I mean, in 2000, we played against the Baltimore Ravens at home for the AFC Championship, and ended up losing to them. They went on to win the Super Bowl. 2001 was the Tuck Rule game. We lost to New England, and that road loss that could have. I thought we were a Super Bowl caliber team then. And then 2002, our Super Bowl year, we probably had our best team, and I wish that we could have brought home the trophy, but we came up short against Tampa Bay.
Yeah, and I mean that the year the Ravens won the Super Bowl, that was a rookie Ray Lewis, right? And that explosive, obviously on defense, one of the best defense of all time, and then the Tuck Rule, which what do you think about the Tuck Rule now actually being on the team? Obviously, what's your thought process on all that?
We got gypped. We got screwed. It was a fumble.
Yeah.
It should have never been called, but we should have never played down to our competition. We were a better team than we showed against New England. And of course, with that rule changed the outcome of the game, because after that happened, we never got the football back and we ended up losing in overtime. So we got gypped.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And I think that was an unfortunate ruling. I'm a Cowboys fan. So when my guy Des Bryant, quote unquote, didn't catch it, and Aaron Rodgers comes back and does all that thing, and that was a tough one too. So I wish that sometimes we could go back in the past, but obviously I'd like to kind of say that, it wasn't just, well, technically it was just about one play, but obviously, you were a better team.
You wished that it wasn't. You wished that it wasn't. Yeah.
Yes, you wish it wasn't. And, obviously you have a very successful career in the NFL, and you play 7, 8, 9, 10 years in the NFL.
11.
11.
Yeah. 3 years with Atlanta and 8 years with Oakland.
Okay. And then you transitioned to the AFL with the Tampa Bay Storm. And why transition from the NFL to the AFL? What was the thought process in that?
Well, when I retired in 2004, my body was very beat up, and it was the reason why I had to shut it down. I was hoping to probably get in 12 years, but I only got in 11. So, it was one of those things where I was like, I'm glad to rest. But then after I healed up, every year, Teddy, every athlete that's ever played a game will tell you they'll have the itch for their particular season. And so a couple of years went by, and it was 2007, I think it was. A couple years went by, and I say, you know what? I think I can go back and play a little bit more. My body's all healed up. I feel good. I'm in good shape. Let me give it a try. However, the Raiders weren't interested. They had said they wanted to move on because they did. So I was shopping around for teams. My agent told me that people want to see you play because you've been out of the game for a few years. So he said, why don't you try arena ball just to get some tape? And that's what ended up happening. I ended up going to the Dallas Desperados to start, which was, Jerry Jones is a former arena team that he had owned, and I was just trying to get scouted. And so I ended up getting traded to the Tampa Bay Storm, which is another arena team, and just played out the rest of the season. And after that season was over, I realized that I am done. Football is no more for me. My body is not going to go through this torture anymore. So it was just, it was something that was something I wanted to do and try. I tried, and then I left it alone after that.
Yeah, and it's interesting. We had Brian Urlacher on the podcast, obviously, Hall of Famer, and he talked about how it is very difficult to, kind of find yourself after you're done football, because that's what you're so used to. That's a 365-day routine for you. I mean, training, eating, sleeping, all that, off season, in season. How important is it to find a hobby after you're done with the sport? Obviously, you found commentating. How important for professional athletes is that to find that hobby or something to do after a sport?
Well, I think it's huge. I mean, very few guys or people will be able to retire and just be able to sit back for the rest of their life and do nothing. But you got to give yourself something to do, something that challenges your mind, something that gives you a reason, a purpose to get up out of the bed in the morning. And for me, I fell into broadcasting, as you mentioned. I didn't really think that I was going to do it. I did have a minor in communications from UW, but mainly just thought that I didn't have any idea what I was going to do after football. And then I got into broadcasting, and I worked a couple of years with the NFL Network. I tried the arena ball shortly after that. Then I went back into radio, and I've been there ever since. But it took a while for me to develop my voice, Teddy, because, everybody wants to sort of be in behind the mic, if you will, or be on the mic or be on the camera. But everyone doesn't necessarily have the talent or the ability. And more importantly, you got to do something that sets you apart. And I found the luxury of being able to do that. I first started with Fox Sports Radio, and I had a weekend show there. And then moved into other broadcasting before I took the sideline job with the Raiders. They brought me back, and I think that was 2015 or something like that. I'm trying to remember. I'm getting old, and been there ever since. So it's been a dream come true to be able to cover the game. And I also do college football, college commentating. I was with the Pac-12 network, but now it's defunct because it's no longer there. I'll be with the Big Ten network this season doing a couple of games, but for the most part, it was just a luxury to find that groove, to find that niche afterwards, after football was over. Once I hung up my cleats, I picked up a microphone and have been there ever since.
Gotcha. And is this something that you see continuing down the road? Like, let me say Washington, the University of Washington goes, hey, Lincoln, we got a head coach job position open for you. I mean, hypothetically, would you look into coaching is, I guess, what I'm saying? Or
no.
Is it broadcasting is what
absolutely not. I have no desire, no patience, no inkling to want to coach. So it doesn't matter what level it is, high school, pro, college, don't want to coach, don't want to deal with the attitudes and teams like that. So no, and that's never been an interest of mine.
And I forgot to mention too, you're not only a 3-time Pro Bowler, you actually have a national championship under your belt in college. Would you mind talking about, what it was like to win a national championship, obviously with the prestigious Washington or the University of Washington, and what set that team apart that year? That was what was that? 19.
That was 91.
91, yeah, 91.
Yeah. I tell you what set it apart was the fact that I think we were a team that was, in 1990 we had a great run. We ended up losing a game to UCLA that prevented us from being number one. So we were really hungry for the opportunity. I always tell the story when people want to reflect back to that 91 team, what was it like? I don't really understand. I don't really think we knew how good we were, but we were on a tear the following year. And when the closest game that we played against was Cal in Berkeley. After that, nobody could hang with us. So when we got to the Rose Bowl, we're taking on Michigan. Michigan definitely had a lot more pub and a lot more notoriety than we did. Even though we were ranked in the top 1 or 2, we knew that we had to win that game. So it's unfinished business. No team had gone undefeated for Washington in the modern era. And so we were on the verge of going undefeated. We just had to win that last game. And we took on Michigan in the Rose Bowl, beat them handedly. And then we were watching ESPN that night to see if we were going to make a national championship. And then get a share with it with Miami, and would have hoped that there would have been a playoff scenario like there's now, because we would have loved to have played those guys and shown them that we really were number one. But, getting a share of the national title is better than not having anything at all. Like I said, we were a team for destiny, and we went out there with a purpose and just ran wild while it was fun.
And obviously, such a stellar team, one of the best college football teams, in my opinion, of all time, with
thank you.
And that Washington team. Now, kind of looking back at the NFL, you were in the league for 11 seasons,
mm-hmm.
and you saw it all. How is the league changing from when you started versus now watching it as a commentator, in terms of the rules, in terms of, we had Jamarcus Russell on the podcast, and he was talking about how obviously he's a quarterback and how he was actually siding with the defense in terms of how he was agreeing that it has gotten soft for him as a quarterback. Obviously, that's kind of one thing. And what other changes do you see that are negatively or positively impacting the league?
Well, I would say that the rules are engineered to help offenses and hinder defenses. I mean, make it almost impossible for a defender to challenge a receiver without getting, penalties and stuff like that. So the rules are more favorable because they want to run up the score. They don't want to see a 3-0 game. And we made reference to that Baltimore Ravens team that went to the Super Bowl. They had a dominant defense, but the league really doesn't want to see that. They want to sell tickets, and so they want to put the offense first and make it easier for offenses to stretch the field and the plays. And they also know their biggest money makers are their quarterbacks. So you want to showcase your quarterbacks. You don't necessarily want to showcase other positions. So, I mean, the game is the game. It is, and you understand it once you play it. And now, as I'm covering it, I understand why they're the things that are in place. So you could tack by the rules every time. And what's a catch? What's pass interference? I mean, all the things that have gone on. Still, it's also, you got to remember, when it comes to the rules, it's subjective. I mean, because you could sit there and call a penalty on every single play. There would be guys who would be complaining about being held. Well, everyone holds, but it's not. If it's not egregious, it's not called, so it's not a penalty. So that type of thing. So there are a number of things that are in place now, but the game is exciting. It's fast. I wish it was more well-rounded in terms of rules. I wish there was more give to like the running backs, the importance of being able to run the football and stuff like that, than just always throwing. But you see it in modern day. The way the league is going, because look at the flag football championship they just had on TV. That's 5-on-5 football. Now that's what young men and young women are playing these days, and their league is trying to expand on that. But that's the entertainment factor they want. They want to see that fast speed play. They don't want to see guys hitting and running for 1-2 yards here. They want to see you throw down the field, go long. So that's the sort of the game that you just have to deal with today.
And it's still ball at the end of the day. It's still a sport we all love.
Certainly.
Everything does change in life. Now, kind of talk about those dynamic quarterbacks, and obviously one comes to my mind who's actually, one of your team's rivals, and Patrick Mahomes. To you, Lincoln, who are the top 5 quarterbacks right now in the league? I know it's kind of a tough take. It has your own opinions, but for you, obviously watching the game, knowing it better than most, protecting these guys, who are your top 5 right now?
Well, I tell you what, that's a tough one. Off the top of my head, I would say it would be Patrick Mahomes, obviously number 1, and then Lamar Jackson, I think, is up there. Josh Allen is another one that comes to mind. Aaron Rodgers is still pretty good. It's not in any particular order, but I'm thinking off the top of my head, 5 good quarterbacks that I could see myself playing with, or enjoy watching. I think the one that kind of would round it out would be Justin Herbert. With the Chargers. You know what I mean? So those are 5 impressive quarterbacks I've seen up close and watched them play.
Yeah,
Justin Herbert.
Shout out to, I think Burrow also deserves to be in that conversation, but I mean, those 3 that you mentioned in terms of Allen, Lamar, and Patrick, like you talked about how they're kind of just changing the game. We all want to watch them when they're playing, because they're dazzling with that long pass, that spin move that Lamar can do, and Josh can do, and that crazy Houdini trick that Patrick can do. So yes, I think that's truly a good top 3, and obviously for someone who's watching, someone who's looking to get into the league like you once were, what would your biggest tip for someone who's trying to make the NFL like you once were, sir?
Well, I mean, if you have the fortune of playing the game and playing it at a high level, and you have the opportunity, I don't know if there's one tip that you would give for a person making in the NFL. The thing is I would say if you got a shot to make it to the NFL, and you do make it, the business, the true meaning of the business is to be available and to stay there. Let's learn how to be available. You got to be selfish in a lot of ways when it comes to your time and your energy, because you have to commit to it. It's not an easy game. It's not for everyone to play. I mean, if everyone could play it, then the league would be overwhelmed every year by players but so it's certainly a fortune if you're able to make it or get close enough to make it. But once you get there, the goal is, Teddy, is to learn how to stay there. Learn how to work the business, because football has evolved to a year-round game now. It wasn't the case when I first started. It was 6 months on, 6 months off. Now it's year-round. So the commitment, the level of physical commitment that these guys pay to themselves over and over again is something that you have to be aware of, and you have to learn how to manage. You have to learn how to take care of your body, as you talked about, eating right, taking care of your body, working out, staying in shape, but staying available. And that's the big thing. You can't allow injuries to mar you. And I was fortunate. I didn't have a lot of injuries in my career. I didn't have any surgeries on my knees or anything like that. I was fortunate. But when my time had come, I was fatigued enough to when I said, you know what, it's time to hang it up. Then it was apparent to hang it up. But it's learning how to stay there if you're able to make it to that level, Teddy.
100%. And, before we go and before I give you the floor, Lincoln, the Raiders more than most people in the world. What is your prediction for their record this year?
Oh, it's a loaded question. You know what? I'm thinking that the Raiders can get double-digit wins. I think they can win at least 10 games.
Oh.
And I haven't gone through the schedule with what I typically do and go win, loss, win, loss, win, loss, because they've got a rough schedule. The fact is they've got a lot of East Coast trips that are coming up, and they've got the same, as they talk about their division. I expect the Chargers to be better. The Chargers are always challenging the Raiders, so it's been a 50-50 thing with them. I expect the Broncos to be better, even though they might not have a quarterback designed just by now, but you still got to deal with the Chiefs. Yeah. The AFC is loaded. Yeah. So it doesn't matter. We take on the Ravens, we take on the Browns, we take on the Dolphins. You're talking about, that's just three teams again, along with the division. So the Raiders are going to have their hands full, but I do think they can win at least 10 games.
And, my final question before who is your breakout player of the year for the Raiders going this year? Who's the guy that we should be watching right now?
Well, I'm certainly hoping that it's Aiden O'Connell, to be honest with you. I'm hoping that he has a breakout season because they've got a number of weapons all across the board, receivers and running backs and everything proven. If they can address as I mentioned, the offensive line, to get their offensive line more consistent, then I really hope that Aiden O'Connell is the breakout player. I'm hoping to suppress a lot of the naysayers about him. Give the young man a chance, and I hope he has a tremendous year. And I'm not asking him to light up the scoreboard like a Patrick Mahomes, but I'm also not talking about just managing the game. I'm hoping he can do some things special to make the Raider Nation, get excited about him, and more importantly, let the nation, the entire nation, get the country get excited about some Raider football.
Yeah, damn right. And I think we'll be in for a treat. Obviously, listening to you on The Voice and watching that young team, obviously Devontae Adams is always a pleasure to watch.
Certainly.
I think truly has mastered the art and one of the best of all time. Now the floor is yours, Lincoln. Where can we find your social media? Are you doing anything besides broadcasting? Where can we find that broadcasting? Is it a subscription? Where can we find all that?
Well, you can go to Raiders.com and you'll have all the games that are telegraphed on the Raiders.com radio or Raider Nation radio. That's all available online. I own a couple restaurants. I live in Phoenix. I own one in Phoenix. I own one in Vegas. They're called Angry Crab Shacks. It's Cajun seafood boil restaurants. Also, I don't do my cigars anymore, but I used to have my own cigar company. Other than that, I'll be on the Big Ten Network doing the first two Washington games versus Weber State and Eastern Michigan. I'll do all the Raiders games. So Jason Horowitz and I are the Raider radio guys for the season. So you'll hear us on that game everywhere. And every now and then you'll see me in another college game. Don't have anything other slated than the two Washington games, but every now and then you'll see me pop up on the screen there. So L Kennedy 72 is my Twitter handle. Lincoln.Kennedy72 is with IG. I tend to post things from time to time. I'm not a big social media buff, but if you're ever looking for me, you can find me there.
And all the links will be in the description, especially Lincoln's restaurant. And please go check that out if you're in the area as well.
Right.
Send me a screenshot as well if you go in there. I'll get you some special stuff out to you as well. Who does not like, Cajun? Who does not like crab? I don't.
Right, exactly.
It's the best of both worlds. Guys, don't forget to follow Lincoln on Instagram and make sure to check out some Raiders Bowl this year. Guys, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe on this video. Until next time, guys, Underdog out. Hey, Lincoln, thank you so much for your time, sir.